So welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success story series of interviews where we discuss with local business leaders, their backgrounds, their successes and challenges, and what really drives them forward. And today I'm delighted to have with us Rob Gill, who's the director at Yonder Limited. And Rob, firstly, thank you for spending the time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, Yonder, and what you do and how you help your clients, that would be great.
Okay. Yeah, good morning. Thank you so much for inviting me. So my background is I'm an engineer. I've designed low carbon buildings for many years. We set Yonder up, I set Yonder up 10 years ago. Really, we use computer program to help people get best value so we can design things that are more comfortable for people. They are better for the environment and they're cheaper to run. My main driver for it was, at the time, people were designing low energy buildings, and that meant sweaty, naturally ventilated buildings that weren't really designed properly, in my view. So we've changed that around, and we help our clients save money. You know, we often save them capital cost as well as running cost. We make the buildings more comfortable for people, so better daylight, better ventilation, better thermal comfort, as we would call it. And that makes them more energy efficient and makes them more, better for the environment. Right. And as we have grown as a business, we do a more rounded sustainability. So it's more ecology, impact on the environment, etc. And net zero is now such a hot topic the last couple of years. Really, that what we do for our clients in the main is help them achieve net zero. So net zero in building buildings and net zero in operating them. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So it must be quite an exciting time for you, as you say. It's such a current issue, especially with energy prices rising so significantly, etc. You must be the phone must be ringing off the hook.
Yes, it is in a lot of ways. And actually, what's nice is people have talked a good game for a long time, but haven't really been doing it. Whereas now it's actually people are doing it, which is, for a company like ours, that's manna from heaven, really. That we're not having to fight to get to the right people. The right people are approaching us. We always struggle to get to the right, the end users and the people who were building the buildings to help them do it properly. Whereas now those people are seeking us out, which is great news.
Oh, wonderful.
So COVID obviously was a difficult time for everybody, but we were fortunate in the sense that it made us address a few issues we had internally, but it felt also like the world went home and grew a conscience, and that's when zero carbon really did seem to come to the forefront, so certainly in our sectors, and that's taken us from, I think we were 20 people before COVID, and we're now 35. So that year and a half has, we've grown an awful lot in that short space of time.
Brilliant. Congratulations. It's great to hear. And I've spoken to quite a few companies that it's great to hear that have grown successfully through COVID, but that's significant growth. So that must be, and I'm guessing that must have been interesting, the whole recruitment process of, I would imagine quite a lot of that would have been remote and not physical at various points.
It was, and actually we recruit people all over the country, which it was great. It's becoming a bit more challenging now because most people are gravitating towards the office, but it has really opened up our ability to recruit all over. But I think what was really interesting is we did a lot of work in the build up to COVID, because we had the Brexit, and all of that. We were really trying to change as a business anyway, and we were putting processes in place that I think enabled us, when COVID hit, to react strongly, and we were resilient at that point. And the changes that have really helped us now, we'd put those building blocks in place before. And I think if we hadn't have done that, I think we would have struggled through COVID.
Right.
I don't think we would have been ready financially. I don't think we would have been ready we wouldn't have had the right team to make the decisions quickly and implement them quickly. And, we did a lot of that work pre-pandemic, really. So, yes, we were fortunate in the zero carbon agenda really came to the forefront, and that's given us a huge boost. But it was the groundwork we put in, the systems we put in place beforehand that really enabled us, and we would have weathered it even if we hadn't have grown in the way we have, we would have been all right, which was great, and it's really set the foundations for for where we are now.
Yeah.
But yeah, recruiting's been the single biggest challenge for us in the last 18 months.
I can imagine. And could you tell us a little bit more about your background and how you got into business and why this particular one?
Yes, and it's a story of opportunity, I suppose. I came into this industry when I was in my early 20s. I'd done various other different things, and I really wanted a career that I could just learn and progress in, and that was engineering. So I became an engineer, a trainee engineer. So I was, went back to college, did day release, and that sort of progressed. So when I started in the early 2000s, carbon and saving, reducing carbon was starting to come out. So there was regulations around it, and that I really got in at the start of that, and that's where my career has sort of taken me. So as I've evolved through a couple of different and moved to couple of different companies, I've become more to the forefront of the sustainability, the carbon and the energy side of things.
Yeah.
And I didn't really set off to run a business. I think ultimately I had a few clients and I felt I could do better work for them on my own without having to worry about other projects and other responsibilities I had. Anyway, I was really encouraged by my clients to do it. And if I'm honest, at the time, I thought it'd be easier. I thought I'd be able to work half the time and earn twice as much, which in the first 6 months was true. But then the work got too much for me, and I took somebody on, and it snowballed from there, really. So I never set off with an intention to run a business, because even now it's bloody hard.
Yep.
It's massively rewarding, but there's so much in the middle that is, it's tough to deal with.
Yep.
And, and I'm not sure if I'd have done it knowing all of that. But I think as we progressed and the work we were doing was becoming, better work, more enjoyable work, we were meeting better clients. And the watershed moment for me was really, I hired one or two really good people. And what I've always found is hiring good people is a pleasure. It makes you want to do it. It makes you want to work harder. Gets you up, in the day. When you've got people that, bad people's the wrong term, but are not a good fit for you as a business.
Yeah.
And that's what I've learned. It's very hard to deal with that. And what I've learned over the years is that, just because somebody doesn't fit our business doesn't make them bad at their job, or, it's just, we're a certain way as a business. We have certain values, work in a certain environment. Some people really thrive in it, and other people don't. And I think I think we were talking just before we started that recruiting on values is so much more important than recruiting on ability.
Yeah.
And we made that mistake for 6-7 years of recruiting on ability. Sometimes we don't have a choice, and we still we still have to, but what we do is we work very hard on labouring the values through the recruitment, and we reinforce them. We have quarterly appraisals, we have biannual away days, and every single one of those, everyone's appraised on their values first and KPIs second, and everything else falls off the back of it. And every away day, it's drummed home values, mission. And it's just really to try and remind everybody what it really means. And, it's so easy. Bad culture is so easy to get, but a good culture is you have to fight for it. You have to fight to get there, and you have to fight to keep it, because it only takes one bad apple and the whole thing will crumble. But when you've got it, it's magic. And, good people will want to learn. Good people will take responsibility because they're motivated to. They're in the right culture. And that's been the biggest change we had to make. Not that we didn't want to. We always thought we had a good culture, but we didn't. I think we had it wrong. I think we thought if we just do nice things for people, then we're going to have a good culture. And it took us a long time to really understand that it isn't. People don't stay for the vast majority of people don't stay for money. They don't stay because they've got flexi working or beer fridges or dartboards or, you know, early finishes, anything like that. They stay because their work is rewarding. They are given feedback. They are given a chance to progress. And that is the clearest thing. So the appraisal system we put in place 2 years ago, which we'd had before, but we weren't properly implementing, has been, for me, the catalyst, that everyone knows where they are. Everyone has clear KPIs. Everyone has clear deliverables. Everybody gets their own feedback. And it's a 360 feedback. So they get a chance to, you know, feedback to us, which is important. But that underpins everything, because otherwise everything else is great. Everyone's, you know, having a beer on a Friday. It's all happy, but underneath, people aren't happy, and they're, you know, I've seen it creeps. so the, you know, definitely the, you know, the values and the recruiting on values the best we can, and the appraisals system has been the key. And since we've come back from COVID, we still don't insist anybody has to be in the office. We've asked, a general rule is if you're office based to be in more than you're not. But other than that, people choose their own hours and their own days. And I would say we have about 50 to 60% of the office in any one time, which I think is very good. You know, I'd like people in more, but as long as people are doing their job, I don't see there's an issue. You know, you know, so you know, we worked very early on in COVID to provide people with KPIs.
Yeah.
Because what we found, and I remember it from when I first started, is when you don't work in an office, it's very disorientating, because when you know, if you've got a 9 to 5 job, you turn up at 9, you work at 5, you've done a good day's work. When you're working from home, and I think a lot of people had this in COVID, and I saw it in our team, they were working really long hours. Yes, they didn't have anything else to do, but I think it was the anxiety they had and the worry of COVID, but that we think they weren't working hard. And so they're all working 2 or 3 hours longer than they should, which at the time we were grateful for a short period, because, you know, we're all apprehensive, but that isn't something that's going to last long term. You know, you're going to drive people into the ground. So we had to be able to give people clear KPIs that meant on a daily basis they understood that they've done a good day's work. Whether they work 4, 5, 6 or 10 hours, it didn't really matter so much. It was more about, here's the things you've got to do in a week, in a day, in a month. So people know they're doing a good job. And that takes away that anxiety, because they know we're judging them on those deliverables rather than the time. And that is really, we've kept that going. And that's why we don't really insist on people being in the office, you know, at certain times, you know, unless they're not performing, in which case they have to be in the office and they get measured. But, you know, so yeah, we learn a lot, and I suspect a lot of people did learn an awful lot in a short space of time. You know, in COVID. You know.
Without doubt. I mean, I think, you know, the use of technology like this, just, you know, I think the use of technology accelerated, you know, six years in about 6 weeks. I think, didn't it? It was just like, and brilliant for it, in my opinion. It's allowed home working, it's allowed, you know, way more flexibility, and I think it's an environment to help, as long as we look after the individuals. It's I was talking to somebody recently about you know, mental health. I think that the isolation piece of lockdown has you know, has in my opinion, most people, including myself, the mental robustness has dropped a couple of notches as a result of the whole sort of lockdown.
And I think anybody who says that it didn't is fibbing. You know, I think if you didn't suffer through it at certain points, then you bottled it up and you're denying. You know, or you threw yourself so hard into your work that your crash is yet to come. But, you know, I suppose it's how you take that on, how you adapt as an individual to those. And I think for a lot of people, it isn't just the mental robustness; it's more your life priorities. It brings morality into focus, your own morality and mortality. Sorry, not morality. And that can change your work-life balance, how much of your life and life's energy you're going to put into something, i.e. work, you've got to reevaluate that. Otherwise, you know, you're a bit daft, aren't you? If you don't say, well, how much mental capacity am I willing to put in? But, I think, and it was a condition, wasn't it? Was it COVID anxiety? How we'd all got isolated and we're all at home, and then going back into spaces with lots of people, and particularly if anyone had issues with that in the first place, getting back into meeting groups, presenting in front of big teams, it takes a readjustment. I mean, I have to see it myself, standing in front of 20, 30 people every week to, give a meeting and galvanize a team. You just got used to doing it over Teams, and, you have to readjust when you're doing it in front of people. And, I think it's, I think it is a definite thing you've got to be wary of.
Yeah.
And accept. But I was very grateful when we could do physical meetings again. I think the video calls are great for almost maintenance. So, if it's a client or project, even your staff, it can't be your only way of communicating with them. I always think like this, like it's a project, at the start of a project, ideally you want to do it in person. Build those relationships. And Teams is great for catch-ups and for short little workshop meetings. Things like design team meetings are a disaster on it because there's 20 people trying to shout at each other. I always think if there's anything up to 4 or 5, you can conduct a really good session. I think when it gets bigger, it gets tougher. But that might be just due to experience. As we progress and we learn the etiquette of how to conduct a video call, then it might improve. But it's definitely, from our perspective as a business, some of the things that we've always advocated, in trying to be more energy efficient, it's great that there's a lot less travel that needs to be done. Because we'll say, well, why are we all traveling to a construction site for a meeting?
Yeah.
So you've got 20 people all traveling just for an hour meeting. Let's do it on video, so no one has to travel. So we save that carbon, but ultimately, it's also a massive time saver.
Yes.
And I think it's, I think that's a real positive in my view. And it does let us communicate with people that are remote. Particularly from a work, a business perspective, from an employee perspective, we can catch up with people. We've got some of our best people that work remotely.
Yeah.
So it's good, and I think, I'm not old, but I'm of an age where, we didn't have this kind of technology. We didn't have mobile phones when I was young, so I didn't grow up. I grew up, in a more, writing a letter kind of environment, and even emails were quite. Even when I started in the profession, we didn't all have our own email addresses or our own computer even when I first started. So, but with the young people now, they've grown up with it. They've grown up with social media. They've grown up with, video technology. So it's secondhand to them.
Yeah.
So they're much more accustomed to being able to work remotely because they, I got rid of. We used to have a big plan printer to print out big A0 drawings. But we didn't renew the license because nobody uses them. Because all the young kids, they just do it all on screen now. Whereas I used to have to go out and draw it on a plan, and and it took me forever to do it, and I have to give it to somebody else to draw it onto the computer. Whereas these kids, they don't even print off A4s. Everything's done on screens because that's how they've been brought up, and so it's a real change. That and I think that's a real positive. That's how the world does progress, forward, and and I think that's the beauty. We've been so fortunate that we're in Leeds, and we've got access to some of the best universities in the country. So the graduates that we've got, we're struggling to keep hold of them because they're going so fast. We're struggling to grow and give them challenging enough work to keep. They're that bright, and they're off doing all sorts of stuff for us. That as a business we're accelerating because these great, motivated young individuals who are bright are pushing us on. and challenge and at the same time challenging everyone else in the business to go with them.
Yeah.
And I think that's fantastic, and it, long may it, continue for us. And I'd encourage anybody to do that, to have the faith in the young people. I don't believe in this, millennial or whatever the thing is. I think at any age there's good and there's good and the bad. And, I knew plenty of people my age that were entitled and poor at communicating. I know plenty of people who were 10 years younger and 20 years younger than me the same. But if you come and, you don't have to come into our office to meet our set of graduates, and I'll tell you, they're not, they can all communicate. They're all bright. They're all motivated. They're not entitled, and that's the recruitment process that we go through. So I think that, you just got to work harder. And it's that adage, isn't it? Be fast to be slow to hire, quicker to fire.
Absolutely.
And now we're at a point where, I don't recruit anybody, nor do I discipline anybody, because the team take that on. They are fierce over their standards now, and they won't stand for anybody falling off if somebody isn't up to standard, they're straight into performance management, because everyone's working so hard, they're not prepared to let anybody else fall and pull the rest of them down with them. And I think that's a really healthy culture. They're not nasty about it, but it's not, if someone's not able to do it, we either need to work out why and train them, or we need to move them on for their benefit and for ours. And I think that, to get into that mentality and to nip things in the bud is so much healthier for everyone concerned. The people that can't or won't evolve, they need to go and find themselves somewhere they'll be happy, because they'll always be unhappy here, because they'll always be challenged.
Yeah.
And and I think that that's the healthy culture bit that we're striving for 8 years and couldn't quite get. And I think we're much closer to it now, and we're pretty close. And it's just maintaining it, and it is a tough bit. It's the really tough bit. One of the key things I think we've done, one of our biggest successes, is we hired a HR person, but I made a big play on the fact that I didn't want them to be CIPD qualified and have come from a HR background. I wanted somebody who'd come from more of a management and development background. So the person who's head of our HR, if you like, has never had a HR role in her life, but she's always managed people, always trained people, always developed people, had to deal with. So her role is all about, how do we take these great people and evolve them and train them and improve them, not how do we make sure we don't get bent over, and how do we make sure we've got all the right policies. We outsource that. That's just a simple thing. And actually those things don't really matter when you've got a good team.
Yes.
And I've always wanted that HR department to be a positive thing, rather than here's the disciplinary element of the business. We don't have that in the business. We outsource that, and we use it if we need it. The HR thing's all around consistency of appraisals. Are we giving the right feedback to people at the right time? If people are going off track, are they being informed, given a chance to improve, told how to improve, trained in the things they need to be trained? That these are the things that, from my experience, previous companies were never done. Yeah. It's all on you to do it. And we do expect people to take responsibility for their own development, but you also, got to understand, if you're taking on people, so we've learned with the graduates, we had an issue with 2 or 3 of them, and it really just came down to the fact that they'd never really worked in a professional environment before. And because we have quite a relaxed work environment, they saw it as an extension of being at university, and were behaving like they were at university. And it wasn't until they were sat down and it was explained to them that they said, oh, well, no one's ever told us. We've never known. And we've seen a turnaround in all of them because of that, because you make the assumption people know. And how do you know if you've never worked in that environment or get told? And I think that's the big thing. People need guidance, and people need, and if you're going to hire young people, as great as they are, there's certain things they just don't know in life, and you've got to be there. You also got to treat them like you treat your child. You've got to teach them right from wrong, and you've got to guide.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wowzers, that's good. Yeah, no, there's a lot of things you've learned there, and about that whole recruitment piece. And I know from the discussion we had earlier that that's been the foundation of the significant growth that you have, which is great. Is there any other key learnings you've had in business as you've grown?
Yeah, many, many. I think controlling your finances is the ultimate. I'm not particularly good with money. Everyone who knows me will tell you that. So if you're like me and you're not, you need to find and trust somebody who is. And I've got a partner. He's a bit extreme, but he doesn't borrow money in his own personal life, and we don't borrow money as a company unless it's for a specific purpose. So we don't use overdrafts, we don't use invoice financing. We saved up to invest in growth, so we're not paying interest, and I think that's worked really well for us because we did borrow at one point. We grew, and as soon as we dipped, you're in trouble because you've got a load of debt to pay. And having good financial management, having management accounts, the amount of companies I know that don't do monthly management accounts. And I was talking to my latest accountant, because I've been through a few, that they've taken, people have come to them to ask them to sell the business or ask them to get investment from a private equity, and they don't have management accounts. They don't do monthly management. So that is key. Monthly management accounts, you need to do them. That control your finances. Absolutely, you can't not. And understand the professional team around you. The challenge we've had is, there's stats, isn't there? So only something like 4% of businesses in the UK are growing at a pace of more than 20%. So if your company is growing fast, you need to be aware that only 4% of professional services, so accountants, lawyers, all the rest of them, they don't deal with people who are growing fast. They don't know how to help you. And that's the problem I had with accountants, that wanted me to do certain things, state certain things. So if you want to go for finance, you've got to make sure your accounts are full. You're submitted them within a month or two of year end. They're all in line. You're not hiding stuff, because they should be right and you should be proud of them. And that will increase your credit rating, and that will help you get finance if that's what you need to grow your business. If you're always submitting abbreviated accounts at the last minute, that's a red flag. So you've got to understand that. So that was key. And then, where you want to go. It's the hardest thing to ever answer, because you don't really think about it when you start a business. Most people don't. What do you want out of this? And, are you going to sell it? Is it a lifestyle business? You've got to know your end game, because the decisions you make along the way, I think, I know a lot of people who run businesses, but they don't have a business. They think they've got a business, but they don't, because they can't take a day off. That's a job. In fact, it's worse than a job, because if you've got a job, you get holiday and you can take a day off. Whereas most people, and me included, you start a business, in the end, you end up working harder and longer than everyone else.
Yep.
You can't take a day off. You can't take a holiday. And it's a hard thing to hear, but you haven't got a business. What you've got is a job. And,
absolutely.
So I think you need to be clear about what you want. If you want is a lifestyle, you want to earn a bit more cash, not have a boss, that's fine. You can do that, but it doesn't mean you've got to run a business. You just got to be really aware of, what you're doing. So how much are you going to sell, deliver, etc., and not over commit, So, but if you're going to be a business, you've got to get to that point of, will it run without you? Can you go on holiday for 2 weeks and it not all fall down? And it at times it can feel like an insurmountable place to get to.
Yes.
So then that took a long time. It took a long time for us to get to that level, because part of it is control, part of it is trusting, and it goes down to good people. So you end up, the reason you can't pass things on is because you don't really trust who's below you, because they're either, and I think it's like a death spiral, because they're probably perfectly capable, but you hold it on a bit too long and they get frustrated and they just, don't fully take on responsibility. So you've got to hide with people, give them proper responsibility, and pass it off. And then, if you're in professional services like we are, the mistakes we have made are promoting people who are really good at the job into positions where they no longer do the job. They do HR, admin, and the rest of it. So you've got to find a way of enabling those people to do more of the thing they're good at, and not put them into positions where they've got to do things they're not good at. And we certainly haven't got to that point yet, but that is the next move for us, is how do we stop elevating our best professionals to a management position where they can no longer actually do the job they are the best at doing.
It's a classic, and I mean, a lot of people identify it in sales, but it's true across the whole raft of business areas, that just being good at what we do doesn't make us good at being a manager at what we do, and it's a totally different set of skills and behaviors and attitudes. And you bang on. It was interesting. I right early doors. No, let me just think. I was still in college. I think I went to an open day for Rolls-Royce engineering many years ago, and I was fascinated that their philosophy then, I don't know if they still have it, was that you could progress right to board level in one of two streams. So one was management, you could become a manager and you could get up to that level, but one was technical, and they believed that you could get to board level and they had equivalent levels of promotion in either management technical. But the one thing they insisted, which I thought was fascinating, is for an 18-month period you had to switch streams so that you could understand the challenge you face. And I think that understanding the challenges a manager faces is as important as understanding the challenges the technical person faces. But
I think so. It's something we definitely talked about and are trying to implement, is that you can go the technical routes, and I think, in hindsight, and it's easy in hindsight, because now we could afford to do it, but back then I didn't feel like we could. But in hindsight, my second hire should have been a business manager, that does the MD role essentially. You'd have to call them that, but I'd have hired somebody that would have run the business for me, so I wouldn't have had to, because you spend your first couple of years working out how to get insurance and speak to the bank and pay wages and do social media and all of that kind of stuff, because you wear all hats. And I think the first thing you should do is work out, it's value, isn't it? Where is your value best spent? What are you the best at that only you can do? General business stuff that there are lots of people out there who could turn hand to that and learn with you. And if you were bold enough to do that, I think we would have achieved success quicker, a less stressful way, if we'd have done that. I think easy said now as everything is, but they're the things for both me and Nathan, who's my sort of fellow director. We've spent so much time, and even do to this day, but now we've got a technical team to deliver the technical stuff that we used to deliver, but we've got more time to devote to the quality of that. But there's all the other stuff that you've got to deal with, the finance and the HR and the who's ordered the tea bags, and who's organising the next team day out, and all of those things, who's booking the train tickets. You end up thinking and doing it yourself, and it's a crazy situation. But
it's we fall into, it's an interesting point though that growth is as challenging as a lack of growth. And the 4% is interesting stat I've not heard before, particularly. My first business, we grew at an average of 40% a year, and I had my own division that grew at 400% for 3 years, and that pretty much broke me. And that I'm sure you can
3 years must have been the max you could have dealt with that for.
It really was, Rob, because I didn't understand a lot of the principles that you and I now probably understand better, and pretty much broke me. I was doing 100-hour weeks because I was making it about me, and so learning, from what I do now, how to do it effectively, delegation, as you said, and structuring effectively.
And I think mentorship is very important. Having a business mentor / coach, finding someone who, even if it isn't in your industry, but someone who's been there and done it, because it's much easier. And what I've found is I've had a few coaches and mentors over the time, and I've learned a lot from all of them, but the biggest thing is you've got to respect them, and the ones that you respect the most, the ones you listen to most, because most people who run businesses are a bit like, you know, me, probably you, and we're all a bit controlling. We're all a little bit thick-headed because we're determined, and we don't take advice very quickly or very well. So it's really important that you seek out somebody that you respect, and if you do that, you know, they'll really help you, because it's much easier to look into somebody else's business and give them some advice, isn't it? Than, you know, because we've all done it. I sit there giving people all sorts of advice, and I think, you know, if I did that in my business as well, it would probably make a massive improvement, because it's obvious when you look at other people's. So having a little network, you know, having a network of other business owners going through a similar thing, I think has always been. I've been fortunate to have one of my really good mates who's gone through, set up his own business, and they're going great guns. You know, they've gone from 0 to 50 million in 3 years now. They've done a business before that, and a business before that, and we've always been. So I've always had somebody else as a friend to, you know, because it could be a lonely place as a business owner. You've got even your partner. Sometimes they don't know the full pressures, and sometimes you don't want to put it on them because it's the path you've chosen, and they can't really do anything. But you know, it is lonely. So having someone's going through the same thing, a little network of people, friends, in addition to a mentor who you would turn to for maybe their more experienced view. If you've got some friends, you could talk about things and the pressures of it, you know. And you know, we used to meet on the morning, go for a walk together. We used to go to college together. That was one thing we always had this weekly sort of, you know, download. And I think that, you know, we talked earlier, you talked about the mental health aspect of it. That's the real key as a leader. And, you know, and that's what I've learned. You've got to be, no matter what's going on, if you want to grow a good team, you've got to be like the duck on water. It can all be going off underneath, and it will be. But to them, you've got to be calm. You've got to be reassuring. You can't flip your lid when they make a mistake. You know, you can't shout at them because you're under pressure for something. You know, you've got to be as calm as you can, as often as you can, and you know, and so you need somebody you can talk to when, you know, get your frustrations out, and you know, you leave that at home, or you need that from a really good friend, I think. And if you haven't got it, you need to find a proper mentor who can put into you.
And I think, you know, obviously it's part of what I do, but it is coaching for me. I think this is the differentiation as well, is because you said we don't often, unless we ultimately respect the person really well. The coaching approach is really valuable within the business owners, but teams as well, because it's more a questioning approach and helping the person find their own way forward rather than telling them what to do. Because, as you said, as business people, we don't typically, as a group, don't like being told what to do. Certainly
No, we don't. Yeah, we don't. It's definitely, you know, coaching is you know, it's a good thing, but you've got to put time into it, and it's like anything. It's like any, you know, coaching is an educational thing. You know, you got to, you know, I've had successes and failures at it, and it all often comes down to how much preparation I put in to engaging, and when I've not put the preparation, I've not got as much out of it, because you're going in and you're not having a structured conversation. You're not going in saying, this is the challenge I've got to do it today. You know, let's talk it through. If you just go in and you haven't got a clear target or clear understanding of what issues you want to deal with, you can waste time and not really move on. And I think that's the best coaching always comes from that. So I think you know, coaching and mentorship is really important, but having a friend who understands what you're going through as well from a pressure point of view is I think is vital.
I heard a description of coaching. In fact, that I've adopted because I like it, which was being an unreasonable friend, which I like the phrase, because you know, we care, but we care enough to challenge and to ask and to poke a little bit to encourage. So what if you say you've learned about yourself, Rob, over this time?
I'm stubborn. I've you know, that I've done a lot of the personality type stuff over the last few years, and Yeah, you learn, and actually, I think I've become more maybe my natural state. But I think when you're learning and you're young, you work harder at being an all rounder. So you think, well, I've got to be outgoing, but I've got to be detailed, and I've got to be this. So I've learned I'm great at getting things going, but I'm not so good at finishing things off. But ultimately, I'm resilient. I think that that's the key.
Right.
You've got to be resilient and adaptable. Things will happen. Things that you'll work really hard to stop something happening, and that won't. But something else will come along and blindside you that you weren't prepared for. So you've got to be comfortable in the unknown a little bit. And I think I'm okay with that, and I'm okay with dealing with the ad hoc stuff. But you need support. I can only do that because I've got a really good team around me. Nathan, Heather, the guy. So build a good team is, nobody can stand alone.
Brilliant. And sort of finally, what does the future look like, and what might be some of the challenges you face as you move forward?
I'd like to complete the circle now. I'd like to, and I'm in the process of, growing the business to an exit. I've got a plan for that. I don't want that to go too far around my team at this point, because I haven't announced it fully to the whole business, but the key people know, and we're working on that. And that's really, I think, for the business to thrive. I know at some point, if I hang on, I'll either become the blocker, or if I lose motivation, I want the business to thrive, and I want it to thrive because of the people in it. So in order to keep the people, I think they're going to go beyond me. I think they're that good, and I think sometimes you've got to get out of the way of it, and so that's going to be a big challenge, how I do that successfully. But that's my goal for the next few years.
Brilliant. Well, one unfortunate stat which I'd urge you to sort of try and manage is that 73% of business owners that sell their business, if selling was the option, regret the sale within a year of doing so.
Is that right? That's a good stat.
It's an unfortunate one, and we believe the main one. Some of the main reasons are not having a plan for what it looks like afterwards, and not really knowing what we want to achieve. So it's worth just bearing it in mind that and I know that with myself, having sold going back quite a long time now, it's just understanding what's next is so key, because with driven people, and I can clearly see from talking to you, a very driven guy, it's like if the other side feels like nothing, then it's like it won't be a great place to be, and it's almost
you're correct.
I've actually seen people sabotage the process because the subconscious didn't want it to happen, if that makes any sense. But look, I'm sure you'll get it right. You've clearly got so many things right in what you've done already, and I really wish you the best of luck in moving forward, and maybe it'd be great to circle back in 12 months and just see where you've come to at that point.
I'd be happy to do that. That'd be fantastic. I might be peeling back what I've just said, but
I'm sure not.
I do have plans. I do have plans for what I want to do next, which is really motivating me. But I'm in no illusions that this has been my life's work to this point. So it'd be a very emotional time. But we'll cross that bridge as we go.
Brilliant. I wish you really the best of luck. So thank you so much.
That's great. All right. Thank you very much. Nice to speak to you.
Thanks, Rob. Bye-bye.